what I gathered from yesterday, you believe that a fetus is a person, correct?
Yes, I think my whole argument. Okay, so let me explain this. My thing is, I'm pretty pro-life. I've always said I'm moderate or center right, and I'm secular, but I'm traditional, I'm not religious, so I'm pretty moderate. But I do believe, and I do agree with this Roe versus Wade thing that just passed. I think that most abortion is bad, most people misuse it. The only thing that I said personally is that, me personally, if a woman got raped and got pregnant from the rapist, I think they should have the option to get an abortion if they want to. And yes, I do. I mean, and that's not because I agree with with abortion per se. It's that I think it's such a terrible situation that there is no right answer. You know what I mean?
That's
why I said, and I believe it's a moral equivalency at that point in regards to your argument that we've started earlier, because I believe you said you just believe abortion should be allowed 100%.
Okay, so I want to hammer you down on this point because you kind of dodged the question a little bit yesterday. Do you think it's ethical to murder innocent people?
Innocent people? No, I don't think it's ethical.
But
no.
You consider a fetus a person, and a fetus that is the product of rape is innocent by definition. It is not guilty because its father committed a crime. How would you feel if I went out in the street right now and let's say, hypothetically, let's say that your dad raped your mother and you found out, you didn't know, but I knew. And then I went there and I killed you and I justified that as your dad having raped your mother. Why should you lose your rights as a person because of what your father did? Try and make that make sense.
I think that's a terrible situation. I think it's a terrible situation. There is no right answer to either one. And I told you, my personal point is that I don't agree with, I think abortion's bad. And I would leave that up to whoever the woman is at that point. And my thing is, I don't think that it's necessarily right either way. It's just I would leave that to the woman at that point. That's my stance. I mean, that's why I keep telling you it's a moral equivalency. My argument is not that either one is right. It's that one is worse. It's worse to have unfettered abortion than an abortion if a baby was like dying and gonna be alive.
You're missing the point. If you grant personhood to a fetus, it should have the same rights as someone who's alive on this earth. Otherwise, you draw a distinction. You view a fetus having the same amount of rights as someone who's already born and walking around, right? They're both people in your eyes.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so like hypothetically, let's say that your mother, let's not make it personal to you, but let's just say that someone's mother was raped, okay? And then she gives birth to this baby that was a product of rape. And then she changes her mind and says, like there's too much trauma here. And she kills the child that's already maybe 7 years old. Do you think that's justified? What?
No, my thing is before the birth, though, in this one situation. Here's where it is, though. Either way, in both arguments, whether the pro-abortion or the anti-abortion argument, the child is going to suffer either way. There is no right answer to this question. So my thing is, in this one time, you can make a distinction. You can say, listen, this is a terrible thing. We shouldn't abort babies, but if this child is going to grow up in poverty, or terribly not get the parenthood he needs, and due to such a terrible stigma he's going to have, I think that this one thing should be for a woman to be allowed to do. I mean, I'm not going to fight for their right to do it.
You can broaden this so easily. You just mentioned poverty, a bunch of other socioeconomic factors. We can expand this.
Right, but hold on.
You can expand this criteria to not only fit the babies that are the product of rape, but what about mothers addicted to crack, mothers that are born into poverty?
No, that's their personal choice. They did that to themselves. It's not the baby's choice to be born ever in life, and especially not so in rape. Most people choose to have their child, and abortions for rape are 1% of all rapes, or all abortions. It is not
it doesn't
that
matter.
the baby
it doesn't matter.
is less important in that case, is that there's always going to be a hard choice you have to make. There's certain situations where nothing is right. I believe this is one of those choices. No matter what you do, there is no right answer. Say we address poverty. The child might grow up in poverty, blah, 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 blah. A lot of abortionists say, oh, well, no child at a certain age is ever a person pre-fetus, pre-conception, and they will grow up in poverty and die, and it's better if we just don't let them live. So at this point, it's the same argument. It's a moral equivalency.
It's
Neither
not,
right is wrong.
it's
Both,
not you.
but it is
You
because
can't.
we had now the criteria is the same in this situation, but there is no right answer to this
A
option.
baby
I'm
does
just
not
simply
pick.
saying on personal
A baby does
preference.
not pick if its father is a rapist or not. This is separate from the baby, right? So if you're granting this fetus, if
Right.
you're granting this fetus personhood, you view it as a person. Whether its dad was Hitler, it's irrelevant to the question. This baby is not guilty for the crimes of its father. So you have no right to kill this person if you truly believe that this fetus is a person. Because you would never go out in the, like, hypothetically, let's say that I go out and do a mass shooting. You would never kill my child for the actions that I did. How is that relevant?
Well, I think that's not the same if you go out and shoot someone. The rape is so traumatic and so stigmatized and so terrible in all situations. No, well, that's your opinion. I think that's one of the worst ones.
It's a bad one. I'll give you that. But like, there's other crimes that are worse. I don't want to go into like some heinous shit. But there's crimes that are parallel.
I mean, you could, yeah, I guess there's some that may rival it.
That's my point.
I think that's one of the worst.
The worst crime imaginable. You don't have to speak it out loud. The worst crime imaginable. A father commits that. Should you go and kill his offspring for something the father did? No, because it's irrelevant.
Well, his offspring is still unborn, and my option is not that it's okay to do it. Is that the woman should get the choice if it's that harmful in all parties? Because no matter what, rape is never good. There is no good outcome to this situation. It was not, yeah, and someone just said it, and I keep telling you this. The intention to make the baby was not there. No one chose this. No one chose this child to come into the world.
Like,
it does. Most children are planned and want to come into the world.
The people having sex right now at this very second, probably millions of people around this planet, there's no intention there to have sex for the vast majority of people. It's a pleasure. It's an outlet. It's a product of a drunk night out. Like, how many times have you had sex and you're like,
that they chose to do, that they chose to do, that they chose to do. You don't choose to get raped unless, and if you do, then it's not really rape.
Let me drop this analogy. Let's say I go out for a drive in the street. My intention isn't going to be to get into a car accident, but car accidents happen. And just taking the opportunity to go for a drive is not me consenting to get into a car accident. The same way as me having sex with a woman isn't me consenting to have a child. You can take preventative measures, but even those aren't 100% effective.
That's a falsehood. You're changing your argument now. You're separating pregnancy and sex. You cannot separate it because the act of sex makes pregnancy. And this is why I think this debate is dumb. You know that is consent from the get-go, is that if you have sex, you know there's a chance that you're going to have a child.
There's a chance,
so that's totally different from someone getting no. There is nothing comparable to you having a drunk night out and going to sleep with someone because you chose to, and you know it might have that the condom could break or that a kid could be born, and someone getting raped. There's no any way to compare that. No one chooses to get raped, obviously, but someone had a malicious intent and went out that night and chose a random victim. Like, that's not the same thing as, oh, my car accidentally fell down. Like, no one knows why bad things happen, of course, but it's not the same thing as, someone playing a child and someone, just getting raped. It's not the same thing. It's still, they're both negative. No, they're both negative.
If you go into something with an intention, sure enough, but you can't prescribe like a motive because most people that have sex isn't for that. It's for pleasure. And the baby...
But you still know sex can result in pregnancy. It's not the same thing.
You can get into a car wreck and die, but that's not... You don't consent to that. When you go out in the road, you're not I can... Yeah,
you do. You do consent to that. You drove the damn car. You know it can happen. No. You do. You can't just say because bad things happen in life, I don't consent to them. Like, you wouldn't be alive. You'd just be laying down
to going out and die. A car.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
So
But
if
I
you
mean,
get
we
into a
still
car
drive
wreck,
anyway.
you're
We
not going to try
consented
and sue
driving.
for damages because you've consented. Like,
Of course, but I mean, you don't allow accidents to happen. That's why they're called accidents. But you consent to the possibility that they
yeah,
do.
you can limit the possibility, but
No, but you
the only
still
way from
consent
not
to
having
it.
a child at all is simply by not having sex at all, and that's just not feasible in this world. Like people, you can take the actions to stop the chance of that.
No, I'm saying that people can have so many. Yeah, exactly. And responsibility is the biggest
But
thing.
accidents
Even women
happen.
who say, "Oh, well, I need access to abortion," women could freeze all their
And
eggs,
even sex,
put it
like
on
there's
the
other ways you
in,
can get pregnant besides sex. Like let's say there's semen on the toilet seat for a woman. She sits down. Like there's other ways. Would you allow abortion in that situation? You either contend that a baby, a fetus, is a person,
No, I wouldn't. I would
and you
say
give
that
it
that's
full
just a
rights,
freak
and
accident. But
you
I'd
wouldn't
say,
make the exception. You would never make the exception that because a fetus was the product of rape, it should be killed because the fetus has no relevance to its father raping. It's not guilty for that. So either it is a person, and you should not, you should ban all abortions, or you shouldn't make that exception. And if you do make that exception, then you've got to widen that
yeah,
scope,
dude. The
and you'd
only
be
thing
like,
that you
okay, so
convinced me
maybe
here is
you can
now
widen that
I'm
scope. Once you have that exception that rape babies can be aborted, then you can widen that scope to include
as to
single
what
mothers. You
exception
can
that
include
anybody should be
drug addicts. You
aborted.
can
As to
include
what?
poverty.
No, no. But answer this. As to what? As to what? Because poverty is usually because of a person intentionally bringing a child into the world when they're not
That's not
ready, or
intentional,
when they're
though. It's
already
not
poor, or
intentional.
they accept it. That's
It's not
intentional.
intentional.
You
If you
know
go
that
out
you're
in
poor.
no,
You know that if you wait and save money, you can change it. But you still chose to do that. Most things in life are intentional. If you choose to bring a
no,
child into the world, you did
I'll
that
tell you what would be
intentionally.
intentional for having a child, right? Intentional would be like
No,
purposely
man.
not wearing a condom, purposely not being on birth control. If you're taking those measures to protect yourself from having a child, then your intention isn't to have a child, obviously. So it's not intentional to have a child at that point. It's just an accident, and accidents
But
happen.
you still consent to having it by having sex. Like you can't break apart. Oh well, my semen might get into a woman's
That's
uterus
not what
or a
consent is,
fallopian
though.
tube and fertilize the egg. You consent. You know that's happening. You're consenting to that. No, you can't separate it. What my only thing is here is not that that it's a good action, is that there it's such a terrible situation that there is no right answer.
There,
And if abortion were to be allowed in a state,
Well,
that
there
a
is a
woman should
right
have that
answer as
choice
long
in
as you
that
keep
one
your
time.
morals consistent. My answer is that like
No,
abortion should be
because
allowed up until a point because I don't view a fetus as a person. If you're going to be consistent and you want to be a moral person, I'd say that you would have to ban abortions for rape babies as well because they're a person and people aren't responsible for what other people do. So I don't see how you can draw that parallel.
but here's the problem. Regardless of what you think, and this is why I hate this argument, it's still a person regardless. My only thing is I think that it's a less of a terrible thing that if someone got raped, that it's their choice if they want to abort. A woman can have that option to abort that child in that
But
situation. You act like there aren't
why should the
situations. Wait,
fetus,
wait, wait,
why
wait.
should the
I'm answering
fetus
you. I'm answering you. If you would listen, you act like there aren't situations in life where you have to make a tough decision. And if something were to happen, like if 1,000 people were going to be saved, if you shot one person, like, I mean, you would obviously shoot that one person. Here, there's no right answer to that. You can't even use that as an example because there is nothing to compare it to. Either way, if you believe a fetus isn't a child or a person, then to you it wouldn't matter. It would still allow you to keep your stance that, oh, maybe it would help the woman, it would help poverty, it would help this. My stance is it would do all that too, but it's still a terrible thing. And the only thing that I'm saying is that there's an exception to the rule at sometimes. That's what I believe. There's an exception to everything.
why should the stress that comes along with being raped, why should that override any other stress that comes from poverty, from addiction? Why should that be like the defining factor that allows abortion, but all these other stresses that mothers can experience from having?
Because that's going to happen
Let me finish.
regardless. I mean, you could say even rape
Let me
is going to
finish, let me
happen
finish.
regardless.
Why should that exception override all the other stresses that can cause an equally miserable life, equal psychological damage?
I just told you because those are uncontrollable. I mean, a rape's uncontrollable too, but you're still going to have poverty. You're still going to have all this. But a rape, you don't choose to get all that. You didn't even choose the child. You didn't even get
The
to. You
child
didn't
didn't
choose
have a
anything.
choice either, whether its father was a rapist or not. So why would you kill an innocent person? That's my question. Why would you kill an innocent person?
Because either way, there's no right. If you allow it to be born, it's might still be grow up in poverty, even worse than it already would be. It would still suffer from the stigma of its father. It would probably mentally be messed up. Its mother would probably be messed up.
So
That's why I say it should be a choice in places that
there
allow
are
it.
certain conditions in life that are worse off than being alive, right? So like you mentioned the stigma, you mentioned poverty.
There are exceptions to the
Do you
rule.
think
I
that there
wouldn't.
are certain criteria in life that would be like, yeah, it's better off being dead than it is in this constant state of suffering? That's what you're trying to say?
I would say there's an exception to the rule. Yeah, I
So
suppose
yeah, if
once
you're
in a
born in
while,
extreme
yeah, there's
poverty,
an
all of
exception
those
to the
same
rule.
things happen. You have stigma for being poor. You have stigma for
Yeah,
your mother
but
being a
you're no.
crackhead.
You're comparing it all to the same thing as rape. Is poverty the same thing as rape? You think that's the same type of miserable feeling as a woman getting forcefully penetrated? It's not the same thing as all.
It
They
doesn't matter
didn't.
that
Most
you
people didn't
either think
choose to
that
be
fetus
poverty,
is
but
a
people chose to
person.
have those kids.
Why?
They chose to have
You're
those
not
kids.
answering the
They
question
chose to
though.
bring them up in poverty. The woman did not choose
You're not.
that. She didn't choose
You're not
any of
answering the
that. She's
question.
being forced all that on top of her. So, I mean, I don't understand the equivalency. There is no equivalency. Now you're saying, oh, poverty happens. Yes, of course it happens. But one thing is someone being forced to have it because of nothing that they did at all. I mean, other people can choose to have their kids. The baby didn't get to choose that. The woman didn't get to choose that either. Some asshole did something
And
terrible.
why should the baby lose its life? But you consider this fetus a full person.
I just
Why
told
should
you
it
I
lose its
accept that
life?
there's
Why should it lose its life to something that someone else did? Okay, there's going to be some suffering from the mother. So what?
I think that's just their choice. I mean, that's
Why
what I'm
isn't it?
telling you. I mean,
Why
I
though?
believe. Why? I just told you this millions of times and you just deny it. As someone who's pro-abortion, I don't see how you can deny it. I do agree with you that there's times where certain time periods, like you're going to see something terrible, like something terrible that could be prevented. I mean, even though it's a terrible
But
thing,
you're
such as
justifying murdering
abortion.
innocent people. I don't think there's a worse moral compass that you can have than that. See,
I
I
don't,
don't
I don't.
consider fetuses fucking people. So I'm not in the
Yeah,
same
that's even
situation
worse.
as you. But
That's even worse, dude.
you're
That's even
justifying
worse.
murdering an innocent person based on what someone else did. That's so fucked up.
So wait. So you don't consider a person, but you admit that it's murder. So I don't understand your argument.
No, I'm using your
You,
logic. I'm going down your logic to show your inconsistencies.
yeah, but no, you can't say that. You can't say that it's murder if you don't believe that's murder
No,
in the
I'm
first
using
place.
your logic.
Now, I
That's
would
why
say,
I asked you
yeah,
initially.
it is
I
pretty
asked you
terrible.
initially, do you
I
consider
didn't
a
say that
fetus
I
a person?
agreed.
You said yes. So I'm going down
I
your
do.
train
I
of logic
don't
to
say
point
I
out
agree
your
with people that do it. I
inconsistencies.
simply said it should be yeah, I think it should be an option for women in places
So
that
it
allow
should
it,
be an
but I
option
wouldn't
to
push for it. I
murder
wouldn't.
innocent people, right? It should be an option to murder innocent people.
No, because not living people who are already born. But I mean, if a child of rape, I think that's an
So you do
exception.
see a
Yes, I do
distinction
think that's
between
an
a
exception.
living person and something in a womb, right? A fetus. So that's not
I
quite a
mean,
person.
I think it's all alive. It's just the distinction is what caused that to be alive.
It
Did you
doesn't matter
choose to
what
bring that
caused
into the
it.
world?
Like we don't even know,
It
dude.
does,
We don't
because
even
this is
know what
like what
caused
people say
life.
about.
Some people
No,
say
no,
it was
no.
the
This
Big
is
Bang. Some
exactly
people say
what
it was
people use.
God.
No,
Some
no,
people
no,
say
no,
it
no,
was a
no, 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 no,
pasta
no. This
monster.
is what people use to justify what is it?
How
Euthanasia. They
something
say,
happens
oh
does
well,
not matter.
why can't I kill myself? Why can't I do this? Because I should have the choice to do that, right? So if you have the choice as a person to do that, you have to be able to choose. If you can't choose, why should you get the choice in the first place?
Dude, you're justifying murdering innocent people. But let's move on to another topic, right? So you think that people kind of consent to having a child due to just the risk involved inherently to having sex, right?
Yeah, they do. You separate that, but it is every time you have sex, there's a chance you're gonna have a child.
And the mother should carry that life because she was responsible for the situation that she put it in. The baby's dependent on the mother for survival.
What's that? Say it again.
You think that the mother, the onus is on the mother to care and bring that fetus into the real world because she was the one who put it in that situation, but it's dependent on her.
Yeah, she did. She did all
Okay,
that.
so like this isn't my argument, but I think it's an
Except in
interesting one.
rape.
I think this is an interesting one, right? So let's say that you're drink driving, okay? You crash your car into someone else, you wake up in the hospital, okay? And you're attached to your victim that you injured in the car crash. And you are keeping them alive through, cords and blood transfusions. You're the one who is attached to this person and you're keeping them alive. Should you be held indefinitely, maybe even for 50 years, to keep this person in their state because you're the reason they're in the position they're in? Through your actions, they are now reliant on your body for to be used.
That's not the same thing as childbirth at
How is it
all. So
not?
that you can't compare this. It's not because you chose to put that there. An accident is not someone choosing. An
No.
accident
If
is a
you go
free.
out, drink driving, you have like enough of a knowledge to know that there's a risk that I'm going to crash and injure someone, and if that happens, then that's foreseeable. Therefore, you're
Yeah,
responsible
that's
for
not
that risk.
childbirth though. That's not even
Of course
comparable to
it is. It's
childbirth. That's
probably,
just
dude,
cruel. That's
going out
cruel and
of your
unusual
head, drink
punishment.
driving, like drunk as fuck. The risk of you injuring something is probably higher than someone who's practicing safe
That's a
sex.
punishment for a crime. I mean, a woman chose to put a baby there
She didn't
versus
choose
wholesale
though. It's an
slaughtering of.
accident. They're both
She
accidents,
chose.
and people
She
have
chose
bodily
to. You
autonomy.
cannot say you didn't choose. No. Hold on here. Bodily, when a baby is conceived, you know that it's there. It's another body. It's another individual. Yeah, I agree that when I say that, like, I think that children or pregnancies due to rape they're still terrible. I mean, I just think that there's a situation like that in life. There's terrible situations that happen, but it's still not the same as when you willingly have sex and then you're pregnant, even though you knew it was going
But
to
you
happen.
didn't know it was
I
going
mean,
to happen.
a
Just
drunk
like you
driver
don't know
doesn't
you're going to
produce a
kill someone
child
if
to
you
be
go out drink
killed.
driving. Like, you don't know that. It's an
But you know that
accident.
it's bad and it could happen. But you know that it's bad and could
Yeah,
happen.
and it could happen. So if it
You
does
don't.
happen,
But
it's
the
completely
punishment. You don't know
analogous
the
to what
punishment.
the mother getting
No, it's not.
pregnant
Someone
from.
hooked you up to that. It's not the same as it being a normal reproductive function.
I'd say
Not
it's
the
like I'd
same.
say the onus is stronger for someone who's drink driving and injures someone. I'd say there's a stronger case for them to keep that person alive than it is for a mother who was practicing safe sex because she took preventative measures not to have a child, to ensure that she didn't have a child. And the risk is quite low once you take, like, the pill, once you use condoms. You can reduce the risk, but it's never going to be zero. And if there's a 0.1% chance that you get pregnant and then you do get pregnant, I can't think that you can say that mother like consented to having sex, or like her intention was to have
No.
the
You
child.
still knew what was happening. You knew there was a 1% chance. You still knew. You can't deny that there's no knowledge there. You know what it does. Stop acting like it doesn't. And this is my point. You are running from responsibility, natural responsibility. That happens in all of natural life. This happens just like the terrible things that I said happen. You know, it's not the same as someone choosing to do something stupid like go drunk driving and then be attached to someone in the ER as a punishment
Why is
to
that
keep
not the
them
same?
alive.
Your
It's not the
accident,
same because
your accident caused them to be in that position that they're in. They're dependent on your body now, the same way that an accidental pregnancy, the fetus is dependent on the mother's
you
body.
put the child there. You put the child there by having sex.
And you
I
put
mean,
that
you could
person in the
say
hospital by drink driving.
okay, but that's not a natural reaction to it. Someone
Of
hooked
course
them
it
up
is. If you crash your car into someone going
no,
50
it's
miles an
not.
hour, a
So it's
natural reaction
natural
is
for
to be
people
in like a
that
fucking
get
pretty bad
no,
state.
no. That doesn't happen in
Of
nature.
course it
Now
does.
you're
You drive your
saying
car into a
human.
crowd of people at 50 miles an hour. Like, you'll see that the natural
So
reaction
the
is a lot of
punishment.
fucked
So
up
you
people.
wait. So if you do that naturally, if someone did that, whether they were doing it on purpose or by accident, would the victim be attached to him naturally after he died?
No, but you would have to.
No, it doesn't. You just said it. You
But you're
just said
appealing to
it. No, it
nature here.
doesn't.
That's a fallacious
That
argument.
is natural. What are
It
you
doesn't
saying?
matter if
Pregnancy is
something's
not natural
natural.
now? This
It
is
doesn't
why I
matter if
don't do
something's
this.
natural.
Pregnancy is natural. It is. It is natural
Rape is natural
pregnancy.
too.
It's
Rape's natural. So
100%.
why do you want to kill rape babies? There's been like
It's because it's terrible. It's not something
rape is
that
found
we
in the
allow
animal
and
kingdom. It's been
condone.
found throughout human history. Like, so if you're going to appeal to nature, then don't kill rape babies.
So you're justifying it? You think that's good?
No,
You
you're
think
the
that's a
one
good
who's
thing?
appealing to nature. You think that.
So there
you
is a
think that
difference
because
between good and bad, right?
Comes into the
There's a
mother's womb
difference between good and
naturally, then
bad.
it's okay for the fetus to be dependent on the mother. But just because you put someone into a
It's going to be
fucking
dependent
coma in
regardless.
the
You can't
hospital
separate it.
and you're
You
not
can't
naturally
separate it. You'll
keeping them
never be able to.
alive, it shouldn't be this. It shouldn't be.
No, because naturally you wouldn't be attached to
It
anybody
doesn't matter.
else except for your
It doesn't
mother.
matter what's natural or what's
And it
not.
does
No, it doesn't.
matter. What are you talking about? You're saying it's natural, but it's not natural to be attached to someone that's got hit by a car. Someone has to do that for you afterward, after you're born. Aside from nature, natural life, unless you're a Siamese twin, you don't get
It doesn't
attached
matter
to someone
what's
else's
natural.
body.
We're
You
talking
Your
on like
analogy
2
is
mobile
wrong.
phones across the world right now. Do you think this is natural in the scheme of things? We're very alienated from nature. So I don't know why you're appealing to like what's natural. Our lives are very artificial at this point.
Okay, but it's even more you just said it. That's artificial. So you're undermining your own argument. You can't say someone being attached to someone after they hurt them is natural. It's artificial.
No,
You're right.
You need to look at the analogy though. The analogy is you have an accident. You put someone in a situation where they're dependent on your body to stay alive. That's completely analogous with the situation with an accidental pregnancy.
No, it's not, because
it
it doesn't happen. Every time you have sex, a woman has sex, they know they can get pregnant 100% or a 0.1% chance if you use protection. That's what happens. Normally, 100%. Every time. You saying that if you get into a car accident and then you have to be attached to someone surgically, that did not happen 100% of the time or ever naturally, is two different things.
Let me
You're
pose
trying
it
to
like
say
this.
that they are the
Let me
same.
pose it like this, okay? You're trying to say that because you have protected, like let's say you have protected sex, and then there's a small chance that you can get pregnant, even if it's a very, very minor chance. They consented to getting pregnant and having the child because they took that risk, right? But what about let's say take a woman that goes into a public restroom and she sits on a toilet seat and there's cum on the toilet seat and she somehow gets pregnant from that interaction. Should she have the right to an abortion? She didn't consent. She basically thought there was zero risk to get pregnant in that situation. What do you say in that circumstance where she didn't take any decisive steps that would have, increased her risk of getting pregnant?
I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. I think it comes down to like it wasn't an intentional thing, and which is why I said
is that fetus no less a person?
Exceptions to the rule.
Is that fetus no less a person? Is the fetus in that situation that comes out from a fucking public bathroom
It's
stall
still a person.
or a rape baby?
No, it is still a person. It is still a person, but there's no right answer.
If it's no less
There
a person,
is no right
then you have
answer,
no
man.
right to
So
kill
this
it.
is a hypothetical. This is why I keep telling you. This is why I say it's a moral equivalency, because moral equivalency, all it means is two sides think the same thing at a certain point, but one thinks that there is better than others solely because of the outcome.
I don't consider a fetus to be a person, so I'm happy to kill them up until a certain point. I think like maybe 20 weeks.
Yes, you have no moral at all.
But
So I mean, this is why I say I'm pro-life still, because I still value life.
Sammy, your moral system is inconsistent. My moral system is that a fetus isn't a child.
No, it's still pretty consistent. It says that there can be exceptions to the rule.
Sammy, you keep cutting me off. Okay, so
my
moral system is that a fetus isn't a person, okay, until maybe like 20 weeks. Once it gets to a later stage of a development, then I do think that it's a little bit unethical to kill that child because it's grown to such a point. So there is a point where I don't consider it a person, and then abortion to that point is fine. I don't see any moral recrimination. But with you, here's the moral inconsistency. You think a fetus is a person no matter at what point in time. And so that's the first one. You consider it to be a person. But you consider an abortion, so a murder of a person, acceptable if that fetus came through existence through rape. So why should that fetus be guilty for the crimes of the father? It's a person. It should have the same rights. It shouldn't be judged based on the actions of someone else. This isn't how any legal system around the world works.
Wait. Why would the mother then? Because they're both still people. How can you choose which one is better, worse? What is the situation? What you're claiming is there's no levels in between. There's no exceptions to the rule in life. And what my argument is that there is sometimes an exception to the rule, or is there not ever? Everything is the same every time. We 100% do
What do you
everything the
mean by an
same
exception
all the
from the rule?
time.
I'm just showing your inconsistencies.
Bro, either way, someone getting abused and getting pregnant through rape or otherwise is a terrible
And so
thing.
is
It's
raising a
not going to be good.
baby in fucking poverty.
Hold on. Now you're cutting me off. Either way, it's still a person. Which person do you choose? Are you going to say we should keep both of them, and both of their lives are going to be terrible because now the mother's messed up, now the child is messed up, and then you're risking the child could be like its father. It could be terrible. It could be bad. So it's still a person. Yeah, it still is a person. But what do we do at this situation? What is it? What's the answer?
Well, if I
If you
had
think
your
that
mindset,
wait, hold on. If I'm inconsistent, even though I believe 99% of the time, which by the way, your arguments are 1% of the 99% of the
it doesn't
1% of
matter. It
all
doesn't matter.
abortions. What? No, it does matter.
It does
It
not
does
matter
matter
at all.
because this is what I mean is I think for that 1% there's an exception to the rule, but 99% of the time I am morally consistent. I just believe there's an exception to the rule in this
So when
1%.
you say the exception to the rule, you
You
change
believe
your
your
moral
morals
system
are
to suit what's
no,
convenient.
your
That's basically
morals
what you
are
mean by
no. I'm
exception to
giving
the
you an
rule.
example. You
That's not
have
what an
none.
exception
You
to the
have
rule
none. Your
generally means,
morals are
right?
not there at all. You think they're not there at
So if
all. So that's a negative
my moral
morality.
system, if I had the same viewpoint as you, and I believe that fetuses were fucking people that had personhood, no matter what stage of development, my moral decision, okay, for a fetus that came through existence from rape, my moral system would be like, okay, well, it's not guilty for the crimes of the father. The mother has no right to kill the
Yeah, but
baby because the baby's innocent. I don't see how you can have such an inconsistent framework where you think that it's okay to kill an innocent person.
well, when people are on life support, we also get the option to take them off of life support. We say that they're not conscious, but their body is, right?
Say that
So what
again.
gives us the right
Say
to
that
do
again.
that? When people are on life support, what gives us the right to take them off life support if their body is still alive? Their consciousness might not be there, but their body is still there. What gives us that right?
Well, I think that in that situation, it comes down to what they would want. I think people would express, to family throughout their life what they would want in that situation. And in a lot of states, it's actually illegal to do that. My nan was in palliative care for about 2 years, suffering because they don't allow euthanasia. But this is a separate topic.
No, but she can choose to be taken off of life support if she wanted
She
to.
couldn't.
Most
No, no,
places you
no, no.
can. Or if you die and or you go unconscious and you're there in a coma, and this is my point. This happens a lot. People go into a coma. What makes you the adjudicator, the judge, to say that they can be taken off? Because if you say every life, let's say we're using my logic, I say there's an exception to the rule, but 99% of the time,
Dude, when you say exceptions to the rule, all you're
there's
saying is that you're making a convenient caveat to your moral system that is convenient for that situation. That's not what an exception to the rule
as opposed to
means.
what? As
Like an
opposed to
exception to
what
the rule, an
morality?
exception. Hang on. Let me just
As
finish.
opposed to what? It's not
An
moral.
exception to
It's
the
not
rule would be
moral
like,
either way.
generally
My
speaking,
argument is that it's a moral gray area. It's a moral
you're
gray area
misusing
because it's
exception.
negative no
You're
matter what
misusing the
happens.
exception to the rule. An exception to the rule would be saying,
No, 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 no,
hang
no,
on, let
no.
me finish. Let me
See,
finish
and
the
this is
point,
why it comes
Sammy.
down to
Sammy, let me finish
opinions.
the point. Because
Oh my
you've said
God.
exception to the rule numerous times in this debate, and all you're saying when you say this is, oh well, my moral system doesn't hold up. So like there's certain times where I just have to ignore that and blah blah blah, sing a little song. An exception to the rule would be like, generally speaking, human beings have 10 fingers, but sometimes people are born with 11 fingers. That would be an exception to the rule. What you're saying is not an exception to the rule.
It is though. If a child is gonna, either way, the mother and the child's gonna suffer. So there is no right answer. I
You
mean,
can
you can
say that
say
for a
that.
child born into poverty.
No, you
Of course you
can't. The
can.
parent chose to put him there.
Just
No,
because the
no. Here's
parent
my
chose,
point, and this is
even
what
if
you're
the parent
missing.
did
This
choose
is no.
to
This
put
is
it
what you're
there,
missing. If someone goes unconscious or is born in a coma or is born terrible or so disabled that they require life support, but or actually, let me just stick to one. We'll say this one. Someone is in a coma because this is the same thing as an innocent person. Someone goes into a coma before they didn't leave a will before that, but it's been like a month. It's been 9 months, the same term as a child. Or actually, it's been 2 months, and the doctors say he's never going to come back. And you said up to like 20 weeks, you believe that abortion's not okay. Let's go off of that. 2 months, this person's in a coma. He's an innocent person. He didn't choose to get like that, just like the baby didn't choose that situation. It's still a terrible thing, right? But the only difference is in a normal childbirth, in a normal life, the woman gets to choose that the child is there. So this is a terrible situation either way. What makes you the adjudicator to take this person off of life support if he doesn't have a will or he's he's in a coma? Just like my reasoning is that rape is terrible. It doesn't give anyone a choice, any woman a choice in the matter, and it's up to them to decide. Yours is, oh, they can just kill it either way because it's not a cell. At least I give it some personhood. And if we're arguing that they're both innocent, then what makes us say anybody can die? You're not leaving any room for argument. We obviously choose when people die when they do bad things, or even when innocent people die when they're so horribly under a coma or dying that you just take them, that when they pass out they go into life support or go into shock,
so,
that they can be
dude, if
taken
you think
off.
that a fetus, which you consider a person, if you think that a fetus on its journey to start a life is comparable to someone who's in palliative care on the verge of death, and you think these two situations are equivalent, then I think
Well, you don't think that a fetus
that's
isn't
a
a
complete false
life, so I
equivalency.
mean,
Hang on.
what is your
So
point?
before we continue, people in the audience, if you want to ask some questions, there's a lot of comments here. There's a question box. You can send the questions directly. That would be easier because I'm not sure which questions are conversations between you guys and which questions are directed at either me or Sammy, or just generally if you want to make a statement, feel free to hit the question box and send it through and I'll read it out. Also, if anyone else wants to participate in this live stream, request to join and you can have a little conversation and we can go from there. Yeah, so what other topic I guess is along this line? I just don't think that there's a difference between a rape fetus,
Well, that's your problem. There is a
and a
difference,
fetus that
though.
didn't come through rape. Like, there's no difference there. Like, you either consider them both people, or you consider it okay to kill innocent people. And I don't think that you would think it's okay to go around killing innocent people. So I can't see you justify killing someone who's the product of rape. That's where I'm saying it's morally
Wait, say
inconsistent.
it again.
That's not an exception to the rule. That's just a moral inconsistency. You think that it's okay
No,
to
it's
go
not. I
around
mean,
killing innocent
either way,
people?
it's a negative thing either way. It's negative for the child. It's negative for the mother. It is not a positive either way, and it's not moral either way. The situation in which it came, you could say poverty and all that happens to a child. That's going to happen regardless around the world. What doesn't happen though, what doesn't give anybody a choice to bring a child into the world, is rape. It's so terrible that I believe there is no right answer. I only have a personal opinion that if the state allowed abortion, that it should be up to the woman
There's
in
so
that
many holes
decision.
in your argument though. You're saying that, okay, like generally speaking, a man and a
How?
woman.
You
Hang on, let
no,
me finish.
because you're disregarding. Wait, hold on. I'm just going to say this because you keep disregarding this. Poverty is going to happen. Rape is going to happen. But people can choose their poverty levels or choose to continue poverty. People can choose to bring a child into poverty. People can also choose to abort that child, but they don't choose to get raped. So which one is it?
Yeah,
Which one
but
is
the
that? Which
choice,
one of those is
that
So,
consistent
choice doesn't
100% of the
hang on,
matter
hang on.
in
I
time?
just
terms
want to
of the
make this
baby.
point, and then we'll introduce the two new guests. So between a healthy
Hey,
man
Indian.
and a healthy woman, there is a chance, even if you're taking all the preventative measures, that you will have a child, like you will fall pregnant. There is a chance there, right? But there's also situations that don't involve sex. Like, let's say that the woman thought she was infertile. She was told that she couldn't conceive, and then she ends up conceiving, right? There's a situation. Or if the one that I gave about the public toilets, there's another situation. There's situations, and what it really comes down to is not how the fetus came to be. That's irrelevant. It's whether you consider that fetus to be a person or not. And if you consider it a person, then you should allow it to live. Otherwise, you're killing innocent people because you consider it a person. So that's my statement on this. We can move on to the first guest, which is, his name starts with an O. What's up? Are you there? Your name starts with an O. No, 2020. 2020, what's up?
I'm here.
I think this. Do you have any comment so far? Otherwise,
I
we'll
do,
move on
so-
to the Indian.
What Semi calls an exception to a rule is not an. You can't make exceptions to what would be considered murder.
Oh, here we
This is the
go.
Hang on,
only,
Sammy. We need a one mic policy. One mic policy, because there's 4 people here. I don't want it to get messy. So just let 2020 finish his point, and then you can have the floor.
So you can't make exceptions to what we would consider murder, right? Murder is what you would call like a criminal action if you kill someone unjustifiably, right? So if someone's raped, regardless of if the mother was raped or not, it's not that baby's fault. So your morality is inconsistent. That's what is trying to be said here.
Yeah, that's my point as well. Sammy, do you want to address that?
Wait, say it again. I was reading a comment.
Repeat.
So the point is, so what you're saying is an exception to a rule is not an exception to a rule. It's what you call moral absurdity, right? So you can't make exceptions to like moral principles based off of certain circumstances. So what you have to do is you have to continue your moral system in a manner that you would have like proceeded into in the past. So like, let's say a woman was raped, okay? That's not that baby's fault that she was raped, okay? Even if like he's gonna go into poverty later, that's that baby's decision, right? If you think it's a person, that person should have a decision to live, right? So you can't make that exception.
Why not?
What do you mean, why not?
Why not?
Because using your logic, then you can start killing different babies.
You don't believe
That's what I've been saying for like the past
life
hour.
starts. Hold on. Life starts at conception, regardless if you think it doesn't or not. It's still life there, because the argument most people have of a pro-abortion is that personhood starts at a certain time point. It doesn't matter. Life starts. I agree with that. I do think with that. Now, what I think this thing is, if a woman gets raped and it's so terrible. I think it's so terrible of an action and destroys the choice that you even get normally in life. That is a moral equivalency.
Yeah, but what you're talking about,
no matter
like
what you do. No, hold on. A moral equivalency means that no matter the means that you take, whether the outcome is still negative, regardless of your moral compass. It just means two sides both believe that they're either correct, and that regardless of what you do, but hold on, regardless, that is what it means. That is what it means. I mean, either side is so 100% morally sure that their side is right that it justifies the outcome of what happens.
No.
Now, when I say this, I've said this multiple times. That is what it means. That is definitely what it means. I looked it up before I came out here, and it's exactly what I'm using it as. So my thing is this.
That doesn't make it like actually justified.
No,
hang on. Let Sammy just round up his
you're
point,
missing
and
the
then
point. You're
try
missing the point.
round it up a little bit.
There is no right answer. There is no right answer to it. There's none. Regardless if even if you're pro-abortion, if you're pro-abortion because you don't think it's a person, fine. If you still think it's a person, but you think the woman should have a choice, either way, the outcome is still the same no matter what you believe. The negatives of both sides and of the world still apply. There is no right answer. It is moral relativism and opinion at that time.
Hang on, Sammy. You're gonna have to let 2020 address.
So if you think,
and then Indian.
This is a good way to get into
Xavier?
the argument, okay? So let's say like a guy shoots someone in the torso trying to kill him, okay? But let's say he hits a tumor.
That's not the same as abortion.
Let's say he hits a tumor and he saves the guy's life unknowingly. Well, the outcome is that this guy's life is positively impacted. So is this a good thing?
That's a good point, actually.
That's not the same thing at all.
Yes, it is.
Moral relativism is when you believe your ends justify the means, and Yeah,
So
that your
obviously that's
ends
not true.
justify the
So
means.
charge.
Your intention in shooting that person was to kill him, not to help him. The intention here, though, is that
Yeah,
we
exactly.
both
But in
think
terms
that
The
of
this
the
would
intention
baby,
help
doesn't
the
either
matter.
baby
way.
has no
But
intention
the
though.
outcome would
The rape,
still be
even though
negative
the
either
rape was
way.
intentional towards the woman, the baby has no control over that. So
Yeah,
it's
the
inconsistent.
fetus being in existence is
Right, but it's still
irrelevant.
going to be negatively impacted regardless what you do, which
Yeah,
is
but
the
the
point in
negative
moral
impact is not
relativism.
towards the
If you
fetus.
wait, hold on, because this is going to answer why I think there's a exception to the
Wait, a
rule.
negative or a
If
positive
you're
impact
pro-life,
doesn't
the
make
child
something
is still
moral.
going to this. Oh my God! Can I finish? Like, bro, if you're pro-life 100%, the child's still going to be born into poverty, still going to suffer. The mother's still going to suffer. If she's aborted, the child's gonna die, which is terrible. The mother's still
So
going
how
to
about this?
suffer.
So
There
let
is
hold
no
on. Hold
right
on. So
answer, but there is an exception
let me
if
give you a
you'd
hypothetical then.
say
So let's say a rich woman is raped and her baby is born rich and they don't suffer due to poverty. Then all those circumstances are gone. Is it
they would
still
still
immoral?
suffer. They would still suffer the stigma. She would still
What
suffer
if the
mental
mother never
scars.
tells
It
the
would be
baby?
economically better, but it would still suffer. It's still a
There is
terrible
no
thing. You
stigma
can't
if they
change
don't
that.
know.
And she didn't get a
The
choice in
baby
that,
has
which
no
is
choice.
bad.
It doesn't know if it's a rape baby or not.
Neither does
It's
the
not
mother.
told.
This is why it's a moral
It's
equivalency.
not.
No
No,
matter
it's
if you're
not.
pro or against
Sammy,
abortion, or you
Sammy,
think
Sammy,
there's an
Sammy,
exception,
Sammy, hang
the
on, hang on.
outcome
Let
is
me
still the
moderate. Let me
same.
moderate.
The
Let me
outcome is
moderate.
still negative.
Sammy, you're overspeaking, okay? Like, Xavier's softly spoken, so when he tries to make a point, you kind of overpower him. Can you repeat what you're saying about the wealthy mother? I missed that.
So basically, he's saying that it's negative due to the outcomes, right? He's making like a consequentialist argument. He's saying let's say a woman's raped, okay, she gives birth to a baby, and now the baby's in poverty and has a whole bunch of negative outcomes. Therefore, you can abort that baby in that circumstance. But that wouldn't work. Let's say if the mother is wealthy, okay, and let's say she never tells the baby it's a rape baby, she
Yep.
gives birth to that baby, and the baby's
Mm-hmm.
born wealthy. There is no negative outcome, but you would still be
Okay.
able to murder under Sammy's moral
Yeah,
view.
I
So
agree.
obviously,
I
that's
agree.
not. Come on, you can't use that.
The
It's inconsistent.
so
But it's still not all positive. She's still going to suffer.
How?
She still didn't choose to get it there. See, both the child and the mother still suffer that stigma, still suffer
There
that
is no
problem, are
stigma if
going
the
to have
baby's
a
never
problem later
told,
in life.
Sammy. The
It
stigma
doesn't matter.
is
They're going
based
to
off
find
there's
out
there's a
eventually
stigma
at
to
some
being
point, unless they're
involved,
just never
dude.
told. But either way, the mother still
Dude, you
suffers.
can
You,
The mother still
when you
suffers.
want
There
to
is no
when you want
positive.
to broaden the horizon to include stigma, you have to say way more than rape. You can because there's so many things that cause stigma. You can have poverty, even mixed race babies in certain societies. Like there's a stigma attached. Like single mothers, stigma, poverty, stigma. Like religion, you can be born into a religious family where you're like a product of a one night stand. There's a stigma there. So you can't just make this one exception and be like, it's okay to kill this person because you consider fetus people. You can't be like, it's okay to kill a person, an innocent person under this situation because there's a stigma attached. But it just makes no sense. Anyway, I want to move over to the Indian Marine and hear from you because you requested to join. Do you have any comments?
Yes. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, we can hear you clear.
Okay, great. Okay, so one point I did want to make that I've not heard anyone talk about this. And honestly, this is actually very important because when you're looking at modern day, and I'm going to put a little bit of precedence here. Right now out there, if there is, when you're talking in regards to rape in general, there are plenty of applications, there are plenty of programs online now where literally at the dial of a button, a woman is feeling unsafe or she's feeling insecure because some crazy guy is walking up to her in the middle of the night somewhere on the streets of Chicago or New York or something like that. And she feels unsafe, she could dial a button and police would respond to that. There are programs that literally work like this. Now, statistically speaking, when you're talking about women who have been raped, especially in modern day America now, most of the time what you're seeing is that a lot of these women who are quote unquote getting raped, they're putting themselves in positions to the point that they actually end up getting snagged up off the street, getting raped or turned into baby whatever, to be used and sold for like human trafficking and stuff. There are stories like this that are out there. You can literally Google these type of things and you could see this, where there are stories of women who they go out maybe for partying or something late at night, and they're walking home, they get up, kidnapped, put into some quad con somewhere, like a big metal container, where she's just literally making babies to be sold on human trafficking markets and the black market type stuff. These type of things happen and they do exist. So a lot of the time people say, oh well, you know, she's a rape victim and stuff. Yes, the amount of times where it's like the person truly had no fault at all as to why that this person was raped. It almost never ever like it really almost never ever happens. So like the
Hang on.
more
Let me just clarify. Are you trying to say that rape is rarely like there's some guilt on the part of the person who was raped? Is that what you're trying to say?
it depends on the situation. So I'm saying in regards, like, if most of the time, like when you're looking at it statistically on the women who, you know, talk about rape and they try getting abortion for those type of children, sometimes, like I said, not always, but sometimes it comes down to where she puts herself in a position to where she makes that choice led up to her getting raped.
The only person that's guilty for raping is the rapist. Like, that's the whole argument. Is like, if you're walking through a Muslim area and you're dressed in like a mini skirt, people will be like, "Oh, you know, you deserved it. You're a piece of meat, whatever." Like, that's a horrible argument.
I mean, it's maybe from an argument stance, but it's not like you don't know what those Muslim people stand for. Like, you know that they don't allow that type of stuff. It's not like you don't know. That's the thing. If you don't know, if there's no way for you to know something, there's no way for you to be at fault, then that's fair to say to an extent. But if you're saying that, oh well, you know, I just decided to test the waters. Okay, well, if you just decided to test the waters and you end up, you know, getting bit by a shark.
We're not fortune tellers. We're not mind readers. We really don't know. You know, there's probably an increase in certain areas, but at the same time, like, an increase in risk doesn't mean that you consent to that risk being happen. People take risks every day. Like, I live in Bangkok. I cross the street. The risk of me crossing the street in Bangkok is probably 10 times higher than crossing the street in Australia, just from dying from a fucking vehicular accident. So, like, I really don't like this logic where you're basically victim blaming at this point.
No, I mean, it's simply the fact that a lot of people, there are times when it's like if you go traveling somewhere, if you're obviously going to do your research and look for, oh, hey, this place has these sites to see, so on and so forth. And there's so much information out there. There's so much access to information out there. It's almost impossible for you to say that, hey, you don't know, unless you just never got a hold of that information. There's so much access to.
Well, I'll let the other guys, Xavier and then Sammy, if you want to touch on what the Indian Marine is saying. And then I think we'll have to wrap it up because I don't want this live to be... Last time I had a live, it went over the limit and then it just deleted off my page. So I want to save this one. So we'll wrap up, address the Indian Marine, and then we can just have a minute to consolidate our thoughts and say our closing statements, and then we can call it a night. So Xavier, if you want to make a comment on what the Indian Marine says, or if not, we can move over to Sammy and then move on to closing statements.
I mean, I guess I could say something. I don't really know what he's trying to say. Like, I guess he's saying there's faults in the hands of people who are raped in certain instances, but I guess it's true. But in terms of morality, like, what you're saying is true, like, if you want to take preventative measures, but moral things, like, just because you're putting yourself at a higher fault doesn't mean what you're doing is consenting to an action that's being done to you, right? Like, a rapist is always going to be raping the individual who's being raped, but that doesn't mean they're consenting to that, right? In terms of morality, then the immoral action would be done by the person who's committing the action. So just because they're putting themselves at a higher fault doesn't mean that you're consenting to the action.
Yeah.
And then,
Part I'm saying is, gets, like, obviously once they get raped, no one's saying a good thing, but at that moment, if you put yourself in a position to where that ended up happening, and now there's a consequence of that, it's like now you're basically trying to, you know, make the baby pay for it in a sense, right? Because it's
I mean, not really, because, like, if you're talking about paying for something, it wasn't really anyone's intention to get pregnant in the first place, regardless of whether or not you were in a position where it could have happened.
There now.
What?
So you can't just say, oh well, I mean, you know, if the life exists now, it's kind of hard to take that point back. Like, that's already there.
All right.
There's no coming back.
Wait, so are you saying that basically rape babies should never be aborted? Is that what you're trying to say?
I mean, it's honestly, it's a gray area. I don't want to say yes, and I don't want to say no.
I think it's only gray if you think that a fetus is a person. I think that's the only time it's
Yes.
gray. Like, I don't see any abortion as a gray
Well,
area
no,
up
it's a
until
person
hang on, Sammy,
regardless.
Sammy,
You
Sammy,
can't
Sammy.
see.
Hold
This is the
on, hold on, hold
problem.
on,
This is the
hold on.
problem with this argument.
Sammy,
Wait,
Sammy.
stop talking over people.
So this is bogus though. You're
No,
arguing
hang
from
on,
a
Sammy.
philosophical
Let me just
opinion.
finish this
You're not
point.
arguing from reality,
No,
so you can't
you're arguing
justify.
from a
You're
moral
not even
innocence.
entertaining the fact that there's exceptions to the
I
rule.
think
No,
this
Cat,
guy,
you can't make exceptions to
guys,
morality.
hang on. The Indian Marine is being way more consistent in his moral framework than you. You realize that, yeah? Because this guy doesn't agree with abortion because I presume you think that a fetus is a person, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah, more.
Sammy thinks that it's a fetus too, but in his moral framework, the inconsistency is that he would kill an innocent rape fetus, what had nothing to do with the actions of the father or the circumstance in which it was born, right, or comes into this existence. So this guy's actually more consistent than you. Me and Xavier are consistent because we don't view a fetus to a point to be a person. So aborting that wouldn't be murder. It wouldn't be killing a person because we don't consider it a
Well,
person. You're
that's
the only
inconsistent
one
anyway
who isn't
because you need
consistent.
life to become a fetus. You need life to be a
Sammy,
personhood. So you can say that you're more morally consistent, but you're not.
something can
You're
be
just
alive
denying that
without
it's
being a person. You keep saying this.
alive at all. You're just downplaying existence as a whole. And if
Existence
you
as a
want to
whole.
do that, then we could do that at a lower level. If you want to say that it's still a clump of cells, that clump of cells is still alive at some
So,
point. Now
Sammy,
you have to
an
decide,
amoeba is
is it,
alive,
wait,
but
no,
that
no, no,
one
no.
you don't.
Now you have
It's
to
about what you
decide
consider to be moral or
which
not.
clump of cells is worth it and when. Now you're making an exception to the rule. You're
No,
saying,
there's no
oh,
exception to
well,
the rule.
we only can abort this clump of cells when it becomes this human clump of cells, I should add, because we're talking about human life. You can only abort this human clump of cells, this human life, up to a certain amount of weeks. You're making the same
No,
argument.
it's not the
That's
same
why I keep
argument
saying
because
this is
there is a
moral equivalency.
definitive
It is.
point
You're
where
just
it cuts
denying
off.
it. You're denying the
You're trying
reality.
to make it
You're
seem like it's
denying
arbitrary when it's
reality, what
not.
it
There is
is.
a
You're
there is a
denying how
time
life
when me and
starts.
Davinsky
You're
can both
denying
say when it
basic
becomes moral.
science. And you're saying, oh, well, we just don't believe it. And that's
No, that's
exactly
not
what
what
I'm
anyone's
pointing
saying.
out. You just don't believe it. You
No,
just
that's
don't believe it.
All
And
right,
you're just lying
guys.
to yourself
I think
about it.
now's a good time to
My
hang on,
wait.
hang on.
Dav, I want to clarify this real quick.
Okay.
My position is this. I think there are exceptions to the rule.
no, no, no,
99% of
no.
abortions are
Morals
terrible
are
and
not
only done
rules.
out
You
of
can't
Hang
make
on. Okay,
moral
guys.
decisions.
only
Let's
selfish
give Sammy can do his
are
closing
done.
statement. So I'll give you a minute, up to a
It,
minute to say your closing statement, and then we'll all wrap up. So I think now's a good time since you're in the spirit of it. So just give your closing remarks, Sammy, and then Xavier, then the Indian Marine, and then I'll end the live.